The television show Hee Haw debuted on CBS in 1969 and was canceled in 1971. But that wasn't the end. Hee Haw remained in production until the 1990s and is still played in syndication on RFD TV, usually 3 times a week. Hee Haw represented comfort food for legions of TV viewers. They weren't selling anything, they were just having a good time. It was a uniquely American show, but it was dreamed up by 2 Canadians. They were inspired to co-create the show after the show Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. That became such a hit in the 60s, they thought they would do a country version of it. Now, Hee Haw got their foot in the door of the network because CBS needed a mid-season replacement for the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour in 1969. You see, the Smothers Brothers show was somewhat of a problem child for CBS. It was fairly good in the ratings, but it caused problems with their content. The place of Cornfield County, the fictional Hee Haw locale, was as far away from controversy as you could get. Hee Haw debuted on June 15, 1969, and was an instant ratings grabber. And then CBS started really pushing the show and promoting it. Then Gloom, Despair, and Agony hit. The TV news in mid-March of 1971 was the cancellation of the Ed Sullivan Show, a CBS staple for 23 years. And then CBS did the unthinkable. They junked the entire lineup of country comedies. Among the casualties were the Beverly Hillbillies, Green Acres, Mayberry RFD, and of course, the show Hee Haw. This moronic demonstration to reach a different demographic was displayed by CBS. Never mind the ratings. People were amazed that these shows that were in the top in their broadcast time slots were just junked to reach a different demographic. But the cast members were told that the show would go on. The producers struck a syndication deal and found a larger audience than they expected. By 1972, it was carried weekly on 205 stations. Actually, the transition from network to syndication was actually the best thing that happened to the show. Basically, Hee Haw struck back. Hee Haw was criticized by all the critics. It was called just an old country bumpkin show. It was called ghastly, and that Nashville should be embarrassed about it. The Boston Globe said that Hee Haw made its debut last night and shouldn't have. Its humor was described as hayseed and cornball. They talked about the cast members wearing bib overalls and popping up out of cornfields and moonshine shacks. But corny was part of the charm. Cast member George Lindsay once said, Southerners have historically relied on a sense of humor to deal with poverty. The cast and crew met twice a year in Nashville to knock out 13 episodes at a time. That's another reason they think it lasted so long, because the cast members didn't burn out. They were fresh. They would do 13 shows, and that was it until next time. The episodes were not taped one at a time. Instead, multiple skits and bits were taped, and the episodes were pieced together during the editing process. They didn't have rehearsals. They went strictly off cue cards, and if they blew it, they just did it again. And sometimes when they blew it, they left it in. Some of the funny skits were the KORN News, Lulu's Truck Stop, String Beans, Letter from Home was always funny, the Cole Haynes of Cornfield County, and Pickin' and Grinnin', and Junior Samples Selling Cars from Samples Sales. That's called BR549. Another one was Gloom, Despair, and Agony on Me. They had a part that was called Hee Haw Salutes. 2 or 3 times in each episode, Hee Haw would salute a selected town. Archie's barber shop was a place of chatter. Doc Campbell would always make flirtatious things to Nurse Goodbody. They had Hee Haw's All Jug Band. And then they had a thing called Hey Grandpa, What's for Supper? Since it was filmed in Nashville, Hee Haw had access to tons of country music legends. Loretta Lynn and Charlie Pride appeared on the debut episode. And you didn't have to be a country music star to end up guest starring on the show. Regis Philbin was on there, Richard Petty, Ernest Borgnine, Tommy Lasorda, Dizzy Dean, and Mickey Mantle, and tons of others. Buck Owens and Roy Clark kind of led the show for most of its season. Buck Owens left the show in 1986, and they tried to carry on without him and try to freshen up the faces. They tried to capture a younger audience, and it just didn't work. The urban cowboy version of Hee Haw went over like New Coke did. Hee Haw realized their mistake, and they went back to their original programming. Now, the show has found eternal life in reruns, like so many sitcoms do. Now, a good portion of the cast members from the show are gone now. They've passed away. The togetherness and the love for each other was exactly what made Hee Haw work. Hee Haw helped raise a lot of young people who went on to become parents, hopefully to pass it on to the next generation. As they always said, y'all come back now, you hear?